Well, welcome to the channel. You're with Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist at Arimba, on the Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia. We're working here on a property and it's a beautiful day. Goodness gracious, look at that. Thank you for joining me. Subscribe if you haven't, or if the content is to your satisfaction. But I do want to talk about the aging narcissist. And this can get catastrophic, psychologically catastrophic for the narc, particularly if they're covert, because these people are used to sweeping stuff under the carpet. And there's some Australian kookaburras up here, viewers. I'll try and get you close enough to enjoy the wildlife here. There's two of them. I hope I can't zoom in with this program, but I'll get up as close as I can. There's one there. I don't know if you can see him. It's an Australian kookaburra. Oh, he flew away, but is there still one there? Yeah, there's one there. Look, there he goes. Yeah, it can get psychologically catastrophic for a covert narcissist as they age and they start to realise that their habits and choices have gone wrong for them. Their children have duplicated what they are. They've maladapted their children so that they're being domestically formed to cope only in ways that they're being shown by the parent, and that's usually via medications, alcohol, weed and other sorts of drugs that aren't prescripted. We'll go and have a look at this wild turkey over here. We're in Australia, New South Wales, Australia. The wildlife's just wonderful. And because the parent, be it the father or the mother or both, are maladaptive, they generate that onto their children. There's a kookaburra. I'll see how close I can get to the kookaburra. There. It's called a blue-winged kookaburra. I don't know if you can see him. I'll try and get a little bit closer, but they are a little bit timid. Otherwise known as a kingfisher. See the blue on his wing? Beautiful, but he's pretty tame, this one. Wow, look at that. That's good footage, viewers. That's an Australian kookaburra. Wow, he's tame, this bloke. See the blue on his wing? He's called a blue-winged Australian kookaburra. Blue-tipped or something like that. As the narcissist begins to be challenged, they could meet someone that's got boundaries and substance and has decided or made their way through life in a sensible way. This can happen. The narcissist can meet people that accelerates their self-revelation of how bad their life has become. And I've experienced this a couple of times as a partner of these people. These people walk around with brooms, spiritual brooms, brooming all their troubles under the carpet. And they get further and further behind, which causes them to become psychologically more susceptible to problems, mental health problems, because the stresses and the weight and the fact that their choices weren't favourable starts to overtake them. The rise in stress, the formidable and predictable psychological and compounded psychological problems that start to confront them, particularly around 45, 50, 55, 60. It's pretty well over at 50 if they haven't got it together. Brings down such a psychological weight on them, their mental health begins to crumble. They fall deeper into, if they're an alcoholic, their alcohol. They begin to become severely suicidal. If they're weed or substance dependent, these things rise. They go recluse. They stop having sex because they've given up on the people that are pumping and dumping them. But what will happen is, for some of these people that just haven't gotten to a point where they've been willing to face the reality of their life, they will meet somebody that possibly, in some cases, it comes along that they get into a relationship with through a dating site or whatever, and this person will reveal to them how bad their situation is. Now, if they've got children that have been they've passed their ways onto the child domestically, and the child's now got this evil domestic formation and have become narcissistic themselves and maybe psychotic in some cases, they are not going to want somebody around that's revealing how bad the situation is, because it gets bad. If the parent looks like they're going to be rehabilitated, the children will go into a panic, because the parent is usually the source of supply, the adult children who are still living at home. They've had their formation disrupted by the dysfunction of the parents. They've put their dependency onto the parent. They're in emotional enmeshment, incest. This usually has gone on for decades, or at least through their teenage years into their adult years. And their dependency on the parent now has infantiled their mentality. The adult. Did you hear that kookaburra in the background there? The adult children, there's the kookaburras. There's an infantile mentality now ingrained into the adult children. They haven't developed properly. They can become hermit-like themselves. If they do get into relationships, they try and hold the relationship together via drugs and the supply of drugs to their partner. Sometimes they are unable to keep the supply up and they lose their partners and have breakdowns. The partner will go off and punish them for not being able to keep the supply. They'll turn to the parent and begin to rely on them again, and the parent will rise to the moment and disable them more. And it's just a vicious cycle where everybody ends up with nothing, absolutely nothing. Nothing mentally, nothing spiritually. They become their own therapists. They try and keep the therapy inside the family because there's too much to hide. And then the parent ultimately begins to break down. They begin to suffer mind trouble. They begin to be unable to keep up with the rent, the bills, the costs of the habits, cigarettes, weed, alcohol. Their life, for the most part, when they should have got ahead, has slipped through their fingers because of trying to keep up with the things that didn't matter. Their example to their children has been woeful. They've brought men in, just random people they've had sex with in front of their children, and then been unable to rise up to keep the relationship going. And in most cases, these people allow the children to interfere with the relationship in such a way as they lose it. The person that they're with just goes, "I'll copy later. You can have good luck with that." And this is what these people do. They drive people away. They're not willing to say to themselves, I've got good supply, I've got a person that wants to love and care for me. No, they're maladaptive. They will stay in their covert emotional incest. They'll give preference to their children over their relationship, because that's where all the enmeshment and bonding is. The partner of the covert emotional incestual person will begin almost immediately to sense something's wrong, and then they'll go become a supply for sex and realise that the emotional exchanges are taking place between the parent and the children, not the parent and the partner. And you just watch these people go nowhere. They just go nowhere fast. They're hostile underneath. They think the world owes them something and it don't. They believe that they've been robbed when they haven't, although I have had a couple of girlfriends that have had partners that have robbed them tens of thousands of dollars. I've been robbed by one covert narcissist myself who I married. She recently sent me a text message just yesterday saying that she's never at this stage in her life going to date again. The men that she's been meeting are lazy and smelly, unable to have sex, but that's all they want. She said, no, I'm just going to concentrate on my grandchildren. I thought that's probably the best thing for you to do, because her behaviour was absolutely atrocious. She was in emotional incest with her son, so she'll probably just stick with her son and her grandchildren. She's shut shop. And again, yesterday afternoon down at the waterfront, I met another old girlfriend who said she's done, she's had it. And I said, yeah, well, don't ring me. No. And these women are finding themselves unable to recover once they've had good supply, and this is where they get into trouble. Once they've met somebody that's good supply, they're not going to tolerate the grubs. They now become aware of the low-hanging fruit that they've been used to. And something happens in their psyche where they go, I just can't lower myself to this anymore. And so they shut shop and reside themselves to their substances, or if they've got grandkids. But a lot of them just go hermit and reside themselves to their substances and alcohol and stuff. And because they're old, 50, 60, whatever, their body just begins to close down on them. Because they've lived a life of delusion, deluded by their sinful nature. And people are using narcissism and all that, yes, which are psychological terms, but the big picture of it is it's our sinful nature, just deceiving ourselves and others all the way through life, as the Bible describes it. People just aren't aware of their sinful nature. They're Christless. A lot of these people have Christian pedigree, but just turn their back on it. The answers were right there in front of them, and they just chose no. They're constantly mopping up their children's messes. Their children send them broke. And they stick with that as a way of manipulating the children to stay around so that they don't end up completely on their own. It's quite zombie-ish. They end up very empty and zombie-like. They just have a blank stare about them. And you've got to recognise these people if you're an older person, and don't let them into your life. They're maladaptive. They're too old. They won't change. They can't change. That's all there is to it. They're stuck the way they are. It's too late. So you be aware of who you're mixing with, what they talk about, what their values are, how they treat themselves. That's the big tip. How they treat themselves. They could be prideful, conceited, sarcastic on the one hand, then you've got the other ones that are on drugs, alcohol and all the rest of it, and then you've got the whole thing mixed together. It's very difficult as you get older to find somebody that got it right. And if these people do find somebody that's got it right, it's going to turn their life upside down, because their life will be put in front of them. They'll be looking in the mirror and going, I've missed it, I've wrecked it. I made the wrong choices. Stay close to Christ. You don't have to run around as a religious freak. Look after yourself. Be well aware. Continue to grow and learn. This is Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist on the Central Coast of Ourimbah, New South Wales, Australia. Again, if you've liked this video or you think it can help somebody, subscribe, like, share. All my content's shareable. Thank you for joining me, and bye for now.